Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to another episode of my Consecutive Criterions, where I go through runs of 3 or 4 criterion numbers in a row. Obviously I'm not criterion complete, otherwise that would be a consecutive series of about 1220. So today I'm going to talk about titles 63, 64 and 65. One of these films might be my favourite film of all time. And we'll start with number 63 from 1962. This is Carnival of Souls. This is a Blu-ray, directed by Herc Harvey, and he also appears as the strange man. Granted, there's quite a few strange men in this. Wonderful artwork. This is a little film. It's only 78 minutes long, made with practically no money. This is a Region B Blu-ray, and this is more a film that looks back the way to kind of German expressionism and silent film, looks forward to Night of the Living Dead, for example, and exists in its own little universe. The blurb on the back says it's got the look of a Bergman and the feel of a Cocteau. Wouldn't perhaps go that high on it, but it's certainly one of those important little oddities that the Criterion Collection, I don't know, doesn't seem to release much of anymore. So a young woman with a remarkable performance by Candice Hillgloss or something like that. That can't be a real name. So her and her friends are crossing a bridge. They have a car accident and they end up going into the river. She comes out being a bit bewildered, but she decides to leave the town to go and play a church organ in another town, because she's an organist, even though she has absolutely no faith or doesn't believe in religion in any way, shape or form. But she starts seeing this strange man while she's trying to fight off her fairly lecherous lodger-in-law. Well, that's what lodgers are called. While she lives in this boarding house. The acting isn't great, but that just lends to the strange atmosphere of the film, with its organ-heavy score. There's a wonderful scene where she starts playing slightly different music to church music in the organ, and the minister chases her out. Says, "I don't think you can work here anymore for playing that strange music. But of course, if you still want religion, I'm here for you." You just have these wonderful dream sequences. Are they dream sequences in the carnival at the end of the pier that she's strangely drawn to? I mean, the twist isn't necessarily that much of a surprise, but this is a film that's more about the atmosphere and, again, its place in history, rather than perhaps being a great film. But again, the acting, the fact that some of the dialogue looks as though it's dubbed, other bits are perfectly in sync. It just has that odd atmosphere, but again, most of that is probably because of budget and stuff like that, whether it's location shooting or not. So it's a wonderful little oddity. Would I recommend everybody watch it? perhaps not. And again, we have one of the old-fashioned poster slash booklets in the inside, which is a lovely essay entitled "Thinking Like That, Don't It Give You Nightmares?" The world is so different in daylight, but in the dark your fantasies get so out of hand. In the daylight everything falls back into place again. Never a true word, and there's Herc Harvey himself. You wouldn't want to meet that going down an alley in the middle of the night, would you? So that's Carnival of Souls. More of a kind of curio piece rather than perhaps one of the greatest films of all time. But next is number 64, which is one of the greatest films of all time, in my opinion, and that's The Third Man, Carol Reed. This is the DVD, because I believe the Blu-ray is out of print and ridiculously expensive. But it's a 2-disc DVD set. There's Harry Lime. Again, it's actually a beautiful edition. And there's the 2 discs as evidence. And then you've also got the booklet. This is one of the most beautiful black and white films ever made. All the Dutch angles, set in Vienna, a crumbling post-war Vienna. There's Trevor Howard. There's Calloway, not Callahan, because he's English, not Irish. Obviously, the famous Ferris wheel. This is just an example of a film that is brilliantly written, brilliantly acted, written by Graham Greene from his own novel, brilliantly shot, has one of the greatest endings of all time. I still don't know how they got away with it, but it still has that little off-kilter atmosphere that almost matches all the Dutch angles. There's at one point where Joseph Cotton gets bitten by a parrot. Wilfred Hyde White. That brilliant line when Joseph Cotton says that his friend Harry Lime's dead, and Wilfred Hyde White says, "Oh, that's awkward," which is just a wonderful line. So this is DVD, as I said. So disc 1 has a video introduction by Peter Bogdanovich. It's got 2 commentaries, one by Steven Soderbergh and writer Tony Gilroy, who has directed films himself, and one by film scholar Dana Poland. There's an abridged recording of Graham Greene's treatment read by actor Richard Clarke. And on the second disc, there's Shadowing the Third Man from 2005, which is a 90-minute feature documentary on the making of the film. Graham Greene, The Hunted Man, an hour-long 1968 episode of the BBC's Omnibus series featuring a rare interview with the novelist. Who Was the Third Man from 2000, which is a 30-minute Austrian documentary featuring interviews with cast and crew. Third Man on the Radio, the 1951 Ticket to Tangiers episode of the series The Lives of Harry Lime, written and performed by Orson Welles, and the 1951 Radio Lux theatre adaptation of Third Man. There's an illustrated production history with rare behind-the-scenes photo, original UK press book, a US trailer, and there's actor Joseph Cotton's alternate opening voiceover narration for the US version, and there's archival footage of post-war Vienna, and there's also a look at the untranslated foreign dialogue in the film, but also obviously love the fact that it's untranslated, so if you don't speak those languages, then you're in the same boat as Joseph Cotton is, as Holly Martin. Just an absolute masterpiece in every level. When they say they don't make films like this anymore, they certainly don't. Again, this is the one that's in the argument for my favourite film of all time, and perhaps an argument for the greatest film of all time. Is just pure pulp and entertainment, but just so well done a good story. There's never a dull moment. Great characters, great dialogue, and again, just a brilliant ending. So then we go on to number 65, which is a bit different from the third man. This is Wes Anderson's Rushmore from 1998, 93 minutes long, starring Jason Schwartzman, who I'm not a huge fan of, but he is fantastic in this. Olivia Williams and Bill Murray, who has been in quite a few Wes Anderson films. Again, Wes Anderson isn't for everybody, but you do feel Wes Anderson must have had something going on with his childhood or his parents, because most of his films are about divorce or a male protagonist creating his own world in his own universe, or sons and daughters creating their own universe and trying to escape from the family life that they exist in. So obviously Wes Anderson had something going on in his childhood. Again, as with all Wes Anderson Criterion releases, which seem to be all of his films apart from the Isle of Dogs, I think, they're all very colourful, and in Rushmore you do actually get a map of the campus of the school. Who knows, Wes Anderson probably drew that himself for Criterion. And you also, bizarrely, which you don't always see, you do get a chapter list as well, and a cast list, and a little booklet as well. So I mean, this probably would be in the lower half of my favourite Wes Anderson films. Again, he's not for everybody. You could argue he's a one-trick pony, but I mean, the work that he does put into his films and the craft, he does do very well. That's maybe why Asteroid City felt a little bit disappointing, because it seemed almost like a rushed job. It almost felt like somebody trying to do a Wes Anderson film, but it was actually Wes Anderson. But this is about how Jason Schwartzman battles Bill Murray for the affection of Olivia Williams, even though Jason Schwartzman is obviously way too young. There's a wonderful theatre production that he puts on, which is just marvellous. Again, it's that artificiality that Wes Anderson builds to try and escape the reality of the world. Characters do tend to go into this artificial psychological world to escape who they really are and what the world is really like. So that's Rushmore, and that is my 3 consecutive criterions for this episode 63, 64 and 65. So please let me know what you think of these films. What's your favourite one out of the 3? And hopefully you'll join me again for another episode of my consecutive criterions. So this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, saying farewell.